Welcome to Reddit Stories, where OP's coworkers keep joking that she's pregnant when she's not. Am I the jerk for being upset that my coworkers keep joking I'm pregnant when I'm not? The company I work for is small enough that you can hear everyone's phone calls and smell what they microwaved for lunch. We're a dozen people in one open office, and we all listen to the same local radio station every morning. It's not a big one, more like a community show where people send in requests and the hosts remember your name. Some of my coworkers email the DJ often enough that they've built a little rapport. I've never been part of it. I just come in, do my job, and mind my own business. After being off for a week, I came in one morning, set down my bag, and heard my name on the radio. Not just my name, the company's name too. The host was congratulating me on my pregnancy. Everyone in the office started laughing. At first, I thought I must have misheard, but then I realized my coworkers had written to the radio host while I was away and told him that I was pregnant. Apparently, he'd been saying it on air all week, congratulating me every morning. The host sounded so genuinely happy that it made it feel even worse. He clearly had no idea it was just a joke. People were grinning, looking over at me, saying things like, "How's the baby?" or "Hope you're taking your vitamins." I tried to laugh it off because what else could I do? But inside, I felt completely exposed. It's one thing to have small office pranks, but this felt different. I'm private and I don't really talk about my personal life at work. Suddenly, people I'd never even met, radio listeners, were hearing about a pregnancy that didn't even exist. I didn't want to blow up or make enemies, so I kept quiet for the rest of the day. But the comments kept coming. One coworker told me to avoid coffee now that I'm expecting. Another joked about picking baby names. It didn't stop. That night, I went home and decided I'd bring it up with management during our next one-on-one. I didn't want anyone fired, just for it to stop. Am I the jerk for taking this so seriously and not just letting it go? That's beyond a prank. That's public humiliation. You're not overreacting. It's completely inappropriate. Especially tying your name and company to a fake pregnancy on air. What's disturbing is that someone thought it was funny to make up something about your body and broadcast it. Pregnancy isn't a joke topic. Report it. Update. First, thank you for the feedback and for validating that I wasn't crazy to feel uncomfortable. At the time, I really did wonder if I was being too sensitive. To answer a few questions, yes, the team is mostly women. We're all around the same age, but I'm the only one who doesn't openly talk about being child-free or dating. I think that's part of why they thought it was harmless. They assumed it wouldn't bother me because I might want kids one day. Our HR is split between two people, an office manager, who was in on the prank, and a director who wasn't. The day after I heard the radio announcement, I told the team to stop. I said it calmly but firmly. I don't like this. Please stop. Everyone went quiet and no one met my eyes. The following morning, I pulled our director aside and told him what happened. I explained that I wasn't pregnant, that my coworkers had contacted the radio host behind my back, and that it needed to end immediately. He was shocked and apologized right away. He spoke with the office manager privately, then asked me to run an errand with him for a bit. When we came back, the radio was turned down low, and everyone looked uncomfortable. No one apologized, but the joking stopped. I found out later that one coworker emailed the radio host to explain it was a prank. He stopped mentioning it immediately. I don't think he ever knew it was fake until then. Ironically, the radio station folded a few weeks later. Every live show went off the air, and the host's program ended completely. I almost felt bad for him. As for my coworkers, the whole thing left a bad taste. I don't hate them, but I stopped sharing anything personal after that. I just kept my head down and worked. You handled this perfectly. The director stepping in quietly was the best possible outcome. They embarrassed themselves, not you. It says a lot that no one apologized. They weren't sorry, they were just caught. That's not a prank, it's bullying dressed up as humor. The radio station folding right after feels like cosmic justice. Still, I hope your manager realized this was more serious than harmless fun. New update. I was reading Ask a Manager as I do every afternoon when one of the recommended posts catapulted me back into my past. I'm the reader who wrote to you about 6 years ago about my coworkers who wrote into a local radio station pretending I was pregnant as a prank. I've been meaning to share an update for a while now, and this felt like a sign. In the years since, things got okay, worse, and then much better. After that first incident, things were quiet for a while. No one mentioned the prank again, but the atmosphere in the office stayed tense. Then, a few months later, everything started unraveling. My relationship at the time ended unexpectedly. I was already emotionally exhausted, and right when I thought things couldn't get worse, I found something that made me feel sick. There was a private messaging channel that some of my coworkers had created to talk about me behind my back. It had been active for months, before the prank even happened. I don't remember every message, but it was mean, childish stuff. Comments about how quiet I was, about my clothes, about how weirdly serious I was at work. By then, our company had switched to an external HR service, so I reported it formally. I wasn't the only one who had issues with the group either. One coworker, who already had multiple warnings, was let go not long after. The rest apologized to my face. I accepted it, but I didn't forgive them. To give some background, the company itself was already crumbling from the inside. It had 2 directors, a married couple, who were in the middle of a messy divorce. That chaos filtered into everything. Before I joined, one director had actually punched an employee at a work event, which caused a small wave of resignations. When I started, new rules were already in place to control everything. We weren't allowed to talk casually across desks. Lunches were staggered so no one could sit together. All our computer screens had to face outward so management could monitor what we were doing. It felt less like an office and more like being under constant watch. When the director who caused most of the trouble finally left, the atmosphere lightened a bit. But by then, everyone had learned to keep their heads down. There was no real teamwork, no sense of trust. It was just survival. Finding that chat channel was my breaking point. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at the screen and thinking, I don't have to keep living like this. That moment snapped something in me. I went home that night, updated my resume, and started applying for anything that fit a short list. Must have real HR, must list salaries up front, and must be somewhere new. I applied for one that caught my eye mostly because of its location. The city looked interesting, and I figured even if I didn't get the job, I could at least visit the museum there. I ended up getting an interview in February of 2020. By April, right as lockdown began, I was hired. Moving to a new city during a global crisis wasn't easy, but it was the best decision that I ever made. I started fresh with no one who knew my past and slowly rebuilt my confidence. Over the years, I've moved up within the same organization. The work is meaningful, the environment is healthy, and I'm part of a union now. When something feels unfair, we talk about it and fix it instead of pretending it's normal. I'm not in touch with anyone from that old job. I don't wish them harm. I genuinely hope they're doing well, just far away from me. Looking back, it's hard to believe I stayed that long after someone thought it was funny to tell the world I was pregnant. Sometimes I still cringe thinking about it, but mostly I feel proud. I got out, I rebuilt, and I finally have a workplace that feels like a place to grow, not survive. This went from uncomfortable to downright toxic. I'm so glad you got out and found a place that values you. You didn't just survive, you thrived. It's wild how long it takes to realize that normal can actually be unhealthy. This update was so satisfying. You walked through fire and came out free. Imagine coming back from your vacation and finding out that your coworkers told the radio you were pregnant. That's not a prank. That's a full-on HR horror story with a soundtrack. And the secret chat about her on top of that? These coworkers needed a hobby and a conscience. She got the best revenge though. New city, better job, and peace of mind. That's the real glow-up they'll never get. My siblings want to join the family business after I expanded it. My dad, who's 65, has been a heavy diesel mechanic for over 30 years. He started with a tiny workshop, 2 part-time mechanics, and 1 beat-up company car. The place was rough around the edges, but it was his pride and joy. I, 29 male, grew up watching him fix engines, weld metal, and curse at trucks that refused to start. By the time I was 12, I was passing him wrenches like it was second nature. My brother, who's 36, and sister, who's 32, wanted nothing to do with the family business. They went into investment banking, and honestly, good for them. They were smart, polished, and allergic to grease. I, on the other hand, was the dropout. I studied mechanical engineering and commerce, couldn't stand the corporate life, and left school to travel for a year. When I came back, I decided to help my dad in the shop. At first, he thought I was just killing time, but once I started, I didn't stop. By 2017, I'd taken over almost everything: operations, client relationships, hiring. My dad kept working on the tools, but I was the one who saw potential for growth. We started offering off-hour servicing, specialized in commercial fleets, and expanded into larger contracts. Slowly, we went from a struggling two-man shop to a thriving operation with 35 employees, 15 company vehicles, and nearly $7 million in annual revenue. My dad and I still paid ourselves modestly, about $150K a year, because most profits went straight back into the business. I was proud of what we built. Then came my dad's 65th birthday dinner. We were at a family restaurant, just laughing and catching up, when Dad proudly started talking about our success. He shared the revenue numbers out loud, $7 million, and my siblings froze mid-bite. You could almost hear their gears turning. Suddenly, the brother who barely texted Dad once a year wanted to discuss succession plans. My sister, who hadn't set foot in the workshop since we were kids, started talking about management roles and how she could help with the business side. A few days later, Dad called me over. He said he had been thinking. He wanted all his children involved in the business. His idea? I'd get 40% and my siblings would each get 30%. My sister would come in as a manager and my brother as a strategist or something. Both would draw high salaries, of course. I sat there stunned. For 6 years, I'd poured everything into this place. I'd risked debt, made calls, negotiated contracts, and built a reputation that kept our phones ringing. My siblings hadn't even visited the shop. They didn't know the first thing about diesel engines, scheduling maintenance, or handling a customer who needs 10 trucks serviced before dawn. They had no clue what our team culture was like. They just saw a golden goose. When I told Dad I needed time to think, my siblings took that as an invitation to start pitching ideas. They talked about things like modernizing operations, streamlining the workforce, and creating a brand identity. Translation: turning a relationship-based business into a corporate mess. They had spreadsheets. I had grease under my fingernails and a decade of actual work behind me. That's when I realized they didn't want to join the family business. They wanted to own it. I told Dad I didn't think it was fair. He looked genuinely shocked, as if he hadn't expected me to say no. He said it was his dream to see all of us working together. I told him his dream didn't include me when I was covered in oil for 12 hours a day. It only included me now that there was money on the table. He got quiet. I left before saying something worse. A week later, he called again, this time for a family meeting. He'd invited a lawyer. My siblings had been discussing strategy behind my back. They had drawn up a 5-year plan where my sister would become CEO, my brother CFO, and I'd be operations manager. In my own company. I was supposed to transition from being the guy who built the empire to the guy fetching reports for people who don't even know how to use a wrench. The meeting was humiliating. They talked over me, smiled politely when I tried to explain how the business actually ran, and acted like I was the kid playing mechanic while they were the adults handling real business. My sister even told me, everyone's replaceable. I wanted to laugh, but it hurt more than I expected. I knew every client by name. I trained almost every mechanic we had. Without me, the business wasn't a business. It was a building full of tools. I left that meeting shaking. Later that night, I told myself I needed to calm down before making any big decisions. So I stopped fighting. I agreed with everything they said. I just nodded. I told them their plans were interesting. Meanwhile, I started reading Art of War. I tried to reason with them. I really did. But nothing I said got through. My brother and sister showed up to the workshop the following week, dressed like they were going golfing. They wouldn't even shake hands with the crew because our hands were covered in grease. My dad was practically glowing, introducing them to everyone like they were royalty. The guys looked confused. Some rolled their eyes. It was like bringing a pair of swans into a mud pit and telling everyone they were the new foreman. After they left, I drove to my parents' house to talk things out. I tried being calm, but they brushed me off. My sister said I was being dramatic. My dad said it would all work out. Then something in me snapped. I told him straight, "You're a terrible mechanic, Dad. You're slow, you're messy, and half the time you make the apprentices clean up after you. You'd be fired if you worked for anyone else." The words came out before I could stop them. The room went silent. I had never spoken to him like that before, but the truth was ugly and it was time he heard it. I told them I was done. I wasn't going to work for people who looked down on me in a business I built with my bare hands. I didn't raise this company from the dirt so someone with a PowerPoint could tell me how to do my job. After that, I went to one of our biggest clients, a logistics company whose CEO had always been a mentor to me. I told him what happened. He laughed, then asked, "How much would you need to start over?" He offered me a $250,000 loan over 3 years. No interest, just trust. Within a week, I signed the lease on our old workshop, bought 4 utility vehicles, spent $45,000 on tools, and started calling clients. 8 of our biggest accounts came with me without hesitation. 7 of our best mechanics did too. By the time my family realized what I had done, the new shop was already open. 65% of the original company's revenue was now mine. My sister was left trying to onboard clients she didn't understand and manage workers who didn't respect her. My brother kept sending out fancy memos about the company mission and vision alignment or whatever. The only thing they aligned was failure. The old business is still standing, but it's a shell. To me, it was never about greed or the money, ownership or pride. I just loved building something with my dad, leading a crew of solid guys who knew their craft and had each other's backs. That version of the business is gone now, and I've made peace with that. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just letting go of what's already been lost. All that said, I do feel a little guilty. Everyone's replaceable, huh? Funny how that works out when the person holding the business together leaves. They wanted the money, not your workload. You did exactly what you had to do. Family or not, they treated you like an employee in your own empire. I'm actually proud of you. Most people in your position would have stayed out of guilt. You walked away with integrity and built something new from scratch. If your dad can't see that, that's on him. He let greed and pride cloud his judgment. This should be shown in business schools under case study, how to ruin a perfectly good family business. You were the engine, they were the paint job. Now their car's stuck in the driveway and you're out there driving your own. So, the siblings suddenly cared about the family business once it started turning real money. Nothing like success to make people remember their family. OP didn't blow up the company. He just walked out with the part that actually worked. And now they're stuck trying to run a shop that they never even learned to respect. Be entitled over a free plane ticket home? Enjoy the multi-stop and bus ticket home. When lockdown hit, borders slammed shut faster than anyone could catch their breath. I was living in Hong Kong then, watching chaos unfold around the world. Flights were being canceled left and right, and countries were scrambling to close entry points before things got worse. My wife and I had been saving up to fly home to South Africa for Easter, but that plan died the moment lockdowns began. We were disappointed, sure, but compared to what others were going through, we had it easy. Many expats in China were stranded, broke, and desperate to get home. Some had just moved there for work, others were students, and all of them were panicking as airlines shut down routes one by one. I was part of an expat group online, and every day new posts appeared about people begging for help finding flights, borrowing money, trying to navigate a maze of restrictions. It was heartbreaking to watch. So my wife and I decided to do something about it. We'd been careful with our savings, and we knew we could afford to help a few people out. We didn't do it for praise or repayment. We just didn't want to see people stuck in a foreign country with no way home. Over the next few weeks, we helped 10 people get back to South Africa. 10 flights booked, 10 families reunited. Some of them managed to pay us back later, but that was never the point. Then came Mel. Mel was an expat stuck in Beijing, desperate to get home to East London, South Africa. Her messages were full of stress and urgency. She said she hadn't worked in months, her funds were gone, and her flight had been canceled 3 times already. I felt bad for her. I reached out and told her that my wife and I were helping people get home, and we could get her a ticket if she was willing to work with our budget. She was thrilled, at first. But that enthusiasm didn't last long. The moment I mentioned budget, she changed her tone. She said, "I'll only fly direct from Beijing to Johannesburg, and then I'll need a regional flight to East London. I'm not sitting through 3 stopovers." I just stared at the message for a minute. This woman had just told me she had no money And yet here she was making demands like she was booking through a travel agent with an unlimited credit card. I explained as politely as I could that direct flights were insanely expensive at that point. Many routes were canceled, and the few that remained cost a small fortune. I told her I could get her home on an indirect flight, maybe through Dubai or Ethiopia, if she didn't mind the extra stops. She replied that if it wasn't a direct flight, she didn't want it. That was the moment I realized Mel wasn't just desperate, she was entitled. So I moved on. I stopped replying to her and used that same budget to help another stranded traveler, a young teacher who was unbelievably grateful and kept sending us updates during every layover. It felt good to help someone who appreciated it. A week later, with lockdown looming, Mel messaged again. The panic was dripping with every word. She messaged, "Please, I'll take anything, just get me home." Ah, how the tables turn. I told her no problem and started looking for the cheapest route possible. And I found it. A 3-stop itinerary that stretched across nearly 2 full days of traveling. Beijing to Dubai, Dubai to Addis Ababa, Addis Ababa to Johannesburg. It was long, exhausting, and exactly what she had refused before. But I wasn't done. She had mentioned wanting to reach East London. A direct flight from Johannesburg to East London was pricey. My budget didn't allow for that. So I looked for alternatives. And wouldn't you know it, there was a 20-hour bus option. Perfect. I booked everything, sent her the full itinerary, and told her she was good to go. She didn't even check before thanking me, probably too relieved to care. A few days later, my phone started lighting up. Mel was furious. She messaged me from her layover in Dubai, complaining about the food. Then again from Addis Ababa, saying she couldn't sleep on the airport benches. By the time she reached Johannesburg, she was running on fumes. That's when she found out about the bus ticket. She called me cruel, said I'd set her up to suffer, and that she'd never forgive me. I told her I had worked within the same budget I'd offered from the start. She was the one who turned it down before. I didn't hear from her again after that, aside from one final message weeks later. "That was the worst trip of my life." I'll admit, I laughed. Maybe it was petty, but after all the arrogance she had shown, it felt fair. 10 people had been grateful and kind. She was the only one who acted like I owed her luxury travel. She made it home safe. Exhausted, but safe. She wanted comfort, and she got perspective instead. I love that you got your revenge, but still actually helped her get home. Petty and kind at the same time. That's a rare combo, OP. You basically managed to help her and humble her at the same time. Kudos. People forget how chaotic those first lockdown weeks were. Borders closing overnight, all flights canceled, folks stranded in airports for days. The fact that you and your wife were out here quietly helping 10 people get home when everyone else was panicking says a lot about your character. Some might call it revenge, but you just gave her exactly what she had turned down before. That's not petty, that's just fairness. I don't even feel bad for Mel. She acted like you were a travel agent who owed her miles, not a stranger doing her a favor. Some people really can't recognize generosity, even when it's saving them. So, Mel threw a fit over her free flight? That's like complaining that your life raft doesn't have first-class seating. Right? She wanted luxury treatment on a rescue mission. OP basically gave her the humility with layovers package deal. And she still had the nerve to complain. Some people treat generosity like a customer service issue. Hopefully the bus ride home gave her plenty of time to rethink her Yelp review of free kindness. All items on the floor are trash? Have fun rooting through the dumpster. I've been a custodian for an office building for several years now. My mornings start before sunrise when the halls are quiet and the only sounds are the hum of fluorescent lights and the steady squeak of my cleaning cart. I take pride in my work. I clean bathrooms, vacuum, take out the trash, and make sure every office looks ready for business by the time the first employees walk through the door. It's simple work, steady work, and that's all I ever wanted. You learn a lot about people when you clean up after them every single day. Some are tidy and organized. Others leave their workspace looking like a paper tornado passed through. Either way, I do my job. One small habit I developed was picking up papers that ended up on the floor. Usually they were harmless. Printouts, sticky notes, store receipts. But sometimes they look like work documents or contracts. I never wanted to risk throwing away something important, So instead of tossing them, I'd place them neatly on the corner of the nearest desk. That way, whoever worked there could decide what to do with them. It seemed like common sense to me. Then one morning, my manager came in early. She was one of those people who always acted like she was too busy to be polite. She caught me placing a paper on a desk and immediately frowned like I'd just dropped a dead rat. She asked what I was doing. I explained that sometimes I found papers on the floor and wasn't sure if they were trash or important. I told her I'd rather set them aside than throw them out by mistake. Her tone went sharp. She said that anything on the floor was trash and that the office staff were professionals who didn't drop important documents. She didn't yell, but her voice carried that kind of quiet authority people use when they want to make you feel small. I told her I understood and that I'd stop. After that, I did exactly what she said. If I found paper on the floor, I threw it out without a second thought. I didn't check if it was blank or signed or stapled. Trash was trash. Her rules, not mine. A few weeks passed. I had forgotten all about that morning until she came rushing in again one day, red-faced and frantic. She told me a filing cabinet had tipped over the day before and some important client files had gone missing. She wanted to know if I had seen any papers lying around. I said I had found a few scattered pages that morning. Some even had typed headers and logos, but I threw them away like she had instructed. She froze. I could see the realization sink in. I reminded her, as calmly as I could, that she had made it very clear. Anything on the floor was trash. She tried to backpedal, said this was different because the cabinet had fallen, that I couldn't have known which papers were which. I just looked at her and asked, how was I supposed to know that when I'm not here during the day? That's when it hit her. This was entirely her doing. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Then she snapped and told me to go out back and start digging through the dumpster. I glanced at the clock. The office opened in 15 minutes and I had 3 bathrooms to finish. I told her I didn't have time to help and she stormed off without another word. About an hour later, I finished my shift. I pushed my cart aside, heading for my car, which was parked right next to the dumpster. And there she was, my manager standing knee-deep in garbage, rummaging through black trash bags like her life depended on it. 2 other employees had joined in, poking through piles of coffee cups, shredded paper, and food wrappers. They all looked miserable. When she spotted me, she snapped, "Get over here and help us." I'd already planned what to say. I stopped a few feet away and told her, "Ma'am, my job is to take out the trash. Your job is to make sure your client's files don't end up in it." She just stared at me, speechless. I got in my car and drove away while they kept digging. I didn't look back, but I'll admit, I smiled the whole way home. Later that afternoon, I got a text from her. It said that from now on, there would be a new system. Any papers found on the floor should go on a special inbox shelf for review. I couldn't help but laugh. That new system was exactly what I had been doing before she decided to make it a problem. All that work, all that dumpster diving, just to end up right back where we started. I learned early on to treat janitorial staff with more respect than the executives. They see everything, know everyone, and can make your day miserable in ways you won't even realize until the coffee filters run out. You suddenly remember who keeps the world running when the toilet paper goes single ply and the fridge mysteriously empties overnight. Custodians have way more quiet power than people give them credit for. Never underestimate the people who hold the keys to the supply closet. Seriously, cross the janitor and suddenly the toilet paper turns medieval. Or the coffee machine just stops working for everyone but them. That's not petty revenge. That's divine balance served with disinfectant. Am I the jerk for insisting my wife take our sons trick-or-treating? My eldest, Liam, who's 7, has been buzzing with excitement about Halloween for weeks. He's been talking non-stop about trick-or-treating, convinced it's the highlight of the year. But to be honest, I think the whole thing is a bit ridiculous. We live in Australia, and while I get that Halloween is a thing in other countries, it just feels silly to me. It's not a tradition here, at least not in our neighborhood, and I've never seen any decorations. The few signs I've come across actually express open hostility towards Halloween because they think it's un-Australian. Every year, I buy a big bag of candy just in case, but in the 5 years we've lived here, we've never had a single trick-or-treater knock on our door. So I've been telling Liam, sorry, but it's just not something people do here. As Halloween approached, Liam's excitement reached a peak. He was practically bouncing off the walls, begging to go trick-or-treating. I tried explaining that it wasn't a common thing around here, but he didn't care. All he wanted to do was dress up and collect candy with his younger brother Noah, who's 5 and equally as enthusiastic. When I brought it up with Alicia, my wife, she outright refused to take them. "It's just a silly American tradition," she said dismissively. "I don't want to waste my time on it." I felt frustrated. Here was Liam, all hyped up for something he saw as magical, and Alicia wouldn't even consider making it special for him. I tried to reason with her, but she was resolute. "I have better things to do," she insisted. The problem was that I couldn't take them myself. I was scheduled for a work trip that would keep me away on Halloween night. "Maybe you could take them out for just a little while," I suggested. She shook her head. "I just don't see the point. I'd rather stay home and relax. Halloween is just a glorified candy grab." The more I thought about it, the more frustrated I became. I didn't want to create conflict, but it felt unfair to deny our kids a chance to enjoy something that so many others get to celebrate. I started considering whether I should just drive them to a neighborhood where trick-or-treating is embraced, even if it meant going against Alicia's wishes. After a long day of back and forth, I finally said, "I can't believe you won't even consider it. They're excited, and it's one night a year. Is it really too much to ask?" Alicia crossed her arms, her face set in defiance. "If you really care so much, maybe you should have thought about that before scheduling your trip. I'm not doing it. It's ridiculous." Feeling defeated, I pulled out my phone to look up Halloween events. If I couldn't take them, maybe I could find a way to make it work, despite Alicia's reluctance. Update: I finally found a local community event that offered a safe trick-or-treating experience. I decided to take them there myself since it's before I leave for my trip. I couldn't wait to see the excitement on their faces, even if it meant facing some backlash from Alicia for overriding her wishes. This whole thing has been the straw that broke the camel's back. I've been fed up with Alicia and her attitude for a while, and I finally decided to tell her that I want a divorce. She took it about as well as I expected, and I'm currently cleaning up our house she basically destroyed before she left to stay with her sister. Karen tried to steal my parking spot, so I made sure she never got another one again. I live in an apartment complex where parking is a hot commodity. We all kind of follow an unspoken rule. If someone's waiting for a spot, you let them have it. Simple enough, right? Well, not if you're Karen. One evening, I'm doing the usual post-work parking hunt. After what feels like an eternity, I finally see someone about to pull out near my building. I've got my blinker on, patiently waiting for the spot. But just as I'm about to pull in, Karen zooms in out of nowhere, grabs the spot, and strolls off without a care. I honk, thinking maybe she didn't see me. But no, she just gives me that classic Karen wave and disappears into the building like she did nothing wrong. Now, I could have confronted her, but we all know how that goes. Karens don't take well to being told they're in the wrong. So instead, I decided to handle things a little differently. Here's where it gets fun. I have a friend who works for the towing company that our complex uses. After venting to him about my little Karen problem, he tells me something interesting. Karen's car is technically over the line into a fire lane. Not by much, but enough to be a violation. So the next day, he swings by, slaps a warning on her car, and of course, Karen being Karen, she ignores it. The car doesn't move, and by the next night, it's towed. You'd think that would teach her a lesson, but no, not Karen. A week later, she's back, and this time she's taking up 2 spaces like she's trying to stake her claim. I couldn't believe the nerve. So I make another call, and yep, another tow. But this time, I decided to leave a little parking gift, a sticky note on her windshield that says, "Parking is a privilege, not a right." Now, Karen's been banished to parking on the street. Every time she tries to park in the lot, she somehow ends up, accidentally, breaking another parking rule. Funny how that works. Ever since then, Karen's been very quiet. No more smug waves, no more taking spots. Just Karen being Karen, quietly parking down the street where she belongs. Am I the jerk for questioning how my son's mother spends the child support that I send? My son's mother and I didn't work out, and I travel a lot, around 6 to 8 months a year for work. She has primary custody, and I send the court-ordered child support, plus extra when I can. Fast forward to this past Sunday. I'm back in town for the holidays, and I plan to take my son out for Halloween. He wants to be a Jedi, so I showed him my own Jedi costume and asked to see the one his mom bought for him. I'd sent her extra money earlier in the month for his costume, since I wasn't sure if I'd be back in time to buy it myself. However, she told him I was going to buy the costume. That caught me off guard, but I played along and said it was in the mail. Thankfully, I managed to find a costume yesterday. Then I had a chance to talk to her privately. I asked where the extra money went. She told me I had no right to question how she spent the money, saying that since she has primary custody, she gets the majority say in things. She insisted that our son's needs are met, and that's all that should matter. I told her the money I sent was for him, not for her, since she wasn't awarded spousal support in our arrangement. Now, this is where I'm getting mixed signals. My mom says I'm being a jerk for questioning how my son's mother is raising him, especially since I'm not around as much. But I don't see it that way. I wasn't questioning her parenting, only where the money went, since she agreed to buy his costume and had said nothing about needing additional help. Early on, I covered her rent and childcare until she eventually found a job, although she took a while and ended up working in retail even though she has a teaching degree. Edit. For clarification, I sent the extra money for the costume because I wanted to be sure he got what he wanted, and his mom agreed to take him to pick it out. The support I already provide generally covers his needs: housing, food, clothing, and other basics. If she ever needed extra money for something specific for him, I'd help out, but the amount we agreed on has always been enough, at least according to her. So yes, I wanted to know where the extra went since she didn't bring up any additional need for him. Second edit. As some people requested, here's the amount involved. I sent an extra $400 on top of the regular child support because my son had his heart set on a lightsaber he saw at GameStop, which cost $235 by itself. She agreed verbally to take him shopping for it and a costume. I transferred the money on the first along with the regular support. I get your reasoning, but you're the jerk. Honestly, why didn't you just buy him the costume in the first place? Coming from my own experience, I saw my dad weekly, but he still used child support as an excuse to put everything on my mom, every decision and every parental labor. And if that's the case with you, then I'd say yeah, she does get to spend the money how she sees fit. You traded in your say in the decision-making for the convenience of not having to raise your own kid. Right. I understand that he's upset because he sent extra money for the costume, but it seems like he didn't even think to factor in the time it takes. He just expected her to do the prep work for an activity he wants to do on his own time with his son. It sounds like he didn't even ask. Also, his comments suggesting he has a problem with how she spends the money overall, that's a clear you're the jerk to me. The money doesn't have to go directly to his son. It can be spent on household expenses. What good is a costume if you can't pay the rent or have a working car or groceries in the fridge? Am I the jerk for kicking out my dad after he said he couldn't afford to feed me anymore? I'm 28, recently got my own house. I moved out when I was 18, though it wasn't by choice. My dad basically pushed me out. Since then, our relationship has been rocky. He's always been a drinker and a smoker, which caused plenty of issues back in the day. Fast forward to now, he lost his house a couple of months ago for not keeping up with his loan payments. So he calls me up, saying he needs a place to stay while he gets back on his feet. I laid out a few ground rules. Either he pays rent, $400, or covers groceries, about $250 to $300, and there's absolutely no smoking in the house. He laughs it off, saying, "I'm your father, I shouldn't have to pay," but I didn't budge. Eventually, he reluctantly agrees to buy groceries. From the moment he moves in, it's just one problem after another. He leaves messes everywhere, doesn't clean up after himself, smokes inside despite my clear rule against it, and drinks like there's no tomorrow. Then one day, I have a girl over, and he has this complete meltdown over it. I finally tell him that if he can't respect my space, he'll have to find somewhere else to stay. Things settle down for a bit, but last week he tells me, "I don't have the money to buy groceries this month." When I ask why, he replies, "Well, you eat a lot," then admits he spent all his cash on smokes and drinks. That was the last straw for me. I was done with him acting like he owned the place, done with the flashbacks to dealing with him as a teenager. I told him to pack up and leave. So, am I the jerk? I said clear boundaries and he didn't follow through. Edit. No, we didn't have a formal contract when he moved in. It was all verbal. Kicking him out won't be easy because police don't tend to offer much support to a son dealing with a parent in situations like this. The common response is that a son should take care of his elderly parent. That was actually one of the reasons I agreed to take him in. I thought that if I could do something good for him, maybe he'd change his view about me. I see now that taking him in was a mistake. How would I handle it if he refuses to leave? He goes out to buy his supplies often, so I'd change the locks the moment he leaves and then head out myself. If he tries to break in or damage anything, that's when I'd involve the police. Not the jerk. Your house, your rules. When the bill comes in his name, then he can run his house the way he wants to. Am I the jerk for excluding my brother from my wedding because of his fun facts? I have an older brother, David, who's 41. David has boundary issues and was in the learning disabled classes when we were younger. My parents never encouraged him to leave home or gain any independence. He has a very rough personality, and since he was never allowed to work or develop his own social circle, he's now in his 40s without any friends. During family gatherings, he always dominates the conversation with his fun facts that no one asked for, going on and on without realizing no one is even listening. My other siblings and I don't enjoy being around David because our parents always let him take over every social setting. My older sister even eloped to avoid the disruption David would cause, especially after my mom kept trying to find a role for him in her wedding. It was too much stress for her to handle. Now I'm getting married to Mel, and my youngest brother, Nick, is my best man. My sister, who is close to Mel, is also in the bridal party, as well as her husband, who's one of my best men. Their son will be our ring bearer. Mel wants a real wedding, and we don't want to be forced to elope as my sister did. However, we've decided that David won't have a place at our wedding, and he won't be invited. The last straw was when he insulted the engagement ring I gave Mel, going off on one of his fun facts about how diamonds are supposedly worthless and don't resell well. He started lecturing us on how I should have bought a secondhand ring or one with a colored stone. Then he launched into the history of engagement rings and marriage traditions. We tried to get him to stop, but he wouldn't listen, and my mom just kept saying to let the professor talk. Even at 40, she still thinks his fun facts are cute. This incident solidified Mel's stance that my brother can't come to the wedding. She's clear that if my parents defend him even once, they won't be welcome either. She's not going to have a wedding like my sister's, and we both feel it's time for David to be held accountable for his behavior. When my mom called to ask about wedding planning, I told her she wasn't going to be involved. After what happened during my sister's wedding dress shopping, where my mom brought David along, and he rattled off his fun facts about wedding dress history, my sister decided to elope. I made it clear that if my parents want to attend the wedding, they can come as guests, but David is not invited. Mom didn't respond at first, and after a while, I think she started crying because my dad took over the phone call. I explained what had upset Mom and reiterated that David isn't invited. I also mentioned that Mom couldn't be trusted with any part of the wedding planning, as she would likely bring David along. My dad claimed he didn't understand why we all hate David, so I explained what was wrong with his fun facts and how they make everyone uncomfortable. Dad brushed it off, saying, "The boy likes to talk, and there's no harm in it." I told him that there is harm in it, and that it's the reason that none of us want to be around him. Dad started defending David, so I told him we were at a stalemate. I said that if things continued this way, then all three of them wouldn't be coming to the wedding. I ended the conversation, but since then, my mom has been sending upset, almost frantic texts to everyone, claiming that we need to be more understanding of David and that what I'm doing is mean. Mel feels this whole situation reinforces that we can't trust my parents to respect our wishes about David at the wedding. I agree with her and worry that they might even try to sneak David in if they do attend. Mom took David to the wedding dress shopping? I would have walked out the moment I saw him, not the jerk. Guest booked a room after being told we were sold out. Around 10 p.m. tonight, a woman came in asking about our rates, saying she wanted to check online to see if it would be cheaper that way. No problem. I told her what rooms we had available, shared their rates, and let her know we were completely sold out of our studio-style suites. She then holds her phone up, showing me a third-party site that's apparently letting her book a studio suite. I sighed inwardly and explained that while the site might let her reserve it, we simply don't have that room type available. I showed her the list of room types we had left and clarified that she'd need to choose one of those, as I had no way to edit third-party reservations. She said okay and sat down in the lobby. 2 minutes later, she comes back up, proudly announcing she'd booked it, a studio suite. At this point, I was at the very end of my shift and my patience was wearing thin. I let out an audible sigh and said, "You booked a studio. As I mentioned, we don't have any available of that type. Since it's a third-party reservation, your only real options are to cancel it and book one of our available rooms or to call the third party to see if they can adjust the room type." I'm not sure if she thought I was bluffing, but she looked absolutely shocked by this news and started in with the usual, "Well, you guys have done it for me before," and "I don't want to cancel it because I won't get my money back for days." Interesting, almost as if someone had given her clear instructions on what not to do. She asked for a manager, and of course, at that hour, there wasn't one on site. Then she asked if we could call one, and I replied, even if I did, they wouldn't be able to edit it because it's a third-party booking. And ma'am, I'm not going to call and wake someone up when I literally told you not to book that room type. You'll need to contact the third party or cancel and book the correct room. Eventually, she sat back down, called the third-party site, and discovered they couldn't help much either. She stormed out while still on the phone with them. A few minutes later, I got a call from the third-party representative asking if we could waive the cancellation fee. I explained the situation in full and refused to remove the fee, explaining I had specifically told her what would happen and she had chosen to ignore me, thinking she could get her way. I left a detailed note in my end-of-shift email to make sure Night Audit was up to speed on the situation and to cover myself in case she filed a complaint for being rude. By the time I was heading out, I saw her walking back up the sidewalk toward the hotel. Big props to Night Audit guy who might have had to handle this delightful guest. It's amazing how often guests will think there is some sort of one-trick hotels hate to get a room when we're completely sold out. I tell them to their face I have no empty rooms, and they scroll through their phones to the least reputable possible third-party site they can find and go, "It says you have rooms online." Sometimes I tell them these are online-only rooms, as in you can only stay in them online, not in the analog world. Wait, so the guest made a reservation that you couldn't accommodate, and then you charged her to cancel it instead of putting her in a different room? Are you insane? My daughter ruined a $3,000 dress because she was jealous. My oldest, Bethany, who's 16, has a step-sibling, Maria, who's 14, about to be 15. Bethany and I are white, while my husband and Maria are Hispanic. They've been in each other's lives since they were 6 and 7, and overall the relationship was good until recently. Maria's quinceañera is coming up, and my husband and his ex-wife took her to get her dress. The dress and alliterations came out to around $3,000. My daughter has been very jealous of the whole party. I've informed her that it's part of their culture, just like when she had a huge Sweet 16 party with her friends. I spent much more time with her to try to make her feel better about it, and I got her own, much cheaper dress for the party. The party is supposed to be in 2 weeks, but my daughter, after an argument with Maria about the TV, she scribbled all over the expensive dress and ripped the back. Long story short, everyone was upset. I gave money to my husband and his ex to try to get a new dress ASAP. I informed my daughter she will need to get a job and pay back the full price of the dress as punishment. We got in a huge argument over it, and she's saying the whole situation isn't fair and that I'm choosing Maria and being a huge jerk. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Quinceañera dresses are not cheap, and your daughter is old enough to know better. Not the jerk. Bethany deliberately ruined that dress. She has to pay for it. If she had done this to a total stranger, would she claim that you're choosing the stranger? If Maria had ruined one of her dresses, would she just let it go? Bethany's very close to becoming an adult. It's time she realizes that that comes with responsibility. I wonder what Bethany would say after reading some of these comments, because I doubt you'll see many, if any, saying that you're the jerk. Or would she complain that you put this out to the world? Bethany needs to understand that she could be charged with a crime in different circumstances. You trash something worth that much, you can get in serious criminal trouble, and she's way too old for this behavior and definitely needs a job. Am I the jerk for signing away a house to my baby mama, even after finding out she put me on child support? The mortgage isn't her name, but she put my name on the deed when our son was born. We were pretty much in agreement that it was her house. 4 years later, I keep our son on the weekends now. 3 months ago, baby mama lost her job. She had me sign a piece of paper that said, handwritten, I no longer live at this address, because she can't get public assistance unless she has proof that we don't live together. My girlfriend, who works in child support, said that she's trying to put me on child support. Baby mama had always said that she'd never do that, but then my girlfriend showed me the statutes and I ran this by baby mama. She said she withdrew the application when she found out. Weeks later, baby mama says that she can't get mortgage assistance unless my name is off the deed. My girlfriend says that something seems off. I signed the documents anyway, but baby mama told me the signature wasn't valid, so we agreed to meet again and re-sign. The morning of, my girlfriend says, I just got an email that a letter addressed to you from DSS is on its way. I text baby mama. She says she got a call about it and was going to tell me about it this evening and says it's probably just a notice, and that if she wanted me on it, she would have done it by now. My girlfriend says she's BSing and explicitly tells me not to sign the deed over. Says that I need to file for 50-50 custody. Girlfriend tells me to call DSS ASAP. Girlfriend texts me an hour later with a voice memo with a rep from Public Housing Assistance saying I do not have to be off the deed for baby mama to get mortgage assistance. I call DSS back and find that baby mama deliberately went and submitted the child support application. Girlfriend tells me to stop all contact with baby mama and that this is now a legal issue. But none of this was consistent with what I knew about baby mama. I called baby mama and she admitted to everything, but said she didn't know about not having to have me off the deed. She said she's only using public assistance until next week, and then she's revoking the child support case. None of that explained why she had to take me off the deed, nor why she deliberately put in a child support application. I stated that because I don't need to be off of the deed, I will wait to sign it over. She hit me with, "So now you're trying to withhold my own house from me?" And knowing her, if I upset her by not signing it, she would keep me on child support permanently. I signed over the house. My girlfriend argued that I shouldn't give up the only asset that may help pay off the child support one day. I asked my family and coworkers, and they disagreed, saying trusting her is my best option and that it would be best to sign over the deed to keep the peace. My girlfriend said that my baby mama controls me and that I'm spineless and that I had no reason to give away the only asset I had. She even went all the way to say that she felt betrayed and that I chose to appease my baby mama over protecting our household finances. We'd been fighting all weekend, but I genuinely felt like I did the morally right thing, as well as the only thing that'll make baby mama drop the child support case. Pay child support. This is not rocket science. Also, your girlfriend is going to be fired for accessing the records of the mother of your kid for personal reasons. You sound sketchy. Your girlfriend sounds sus and insecure. But also, I don't know about everywhere, but I know in New York City that if you have this situation and apply for any kind of public assistance, they require you to file for child support. Baby mama might not have a choice, but also just pay the child support. It's your kid. Info. Did you actually contribute to the purchase of the house, or was putting your name on the mortgage a gesture of making you three a family? By contributing to the purchase, I mean either contributing to the down payment or pay more than half the rental value of the house each month. If you have not contributed to the purchase of the house and you use her house as leverage to try to deal with child support, then you are lower than the gum on the bottom of someone's shoe. You should be paying child support. You have a kid and your kid's other parent is struggling. That's what child support is for. It's crappy that your baby mama is lying to you about what she's doing. Your girlfriend is urging you to be a slime ball. Baby mama lying isn't crappy at all. Sounds like she's just trying to keep her house and get the child support she's entitled to, and is rightfully scared OP won't give her house. Lying is smart. She's protecting herself. I quit my job of 6 years just to prove to senior management how useless and incompetent my manager was. And it worked. I started my last job in 2017. I was a part-time warehouse worker who over a few years was promoted into a transport admin/management role. Myself and another colleague ran our department between us, only really reporting to our then line manager if we needed support with any part of our job, or time off, etc. But other than that, he trusted us completely to run things. It wasn't without its stressful days, but we had a really good thing going. Then in 2021, the business made some changes, moved our then line manager onto a different department, and we got a new designated manager just to manage the two of us in our department. We were naturally quite bitter about it, but nevertheless thought we'd give him a chance. He turned out to be an absolute control freak and a bully. But he was strange. He could be very supportive one minute, then a manipulative bully the next. He loved poking fun out of the fact I had a car accident last year. He loved solely targeting me for the bad jobs and loved causing trouble between me and other colleagues. Then in March of this year, my girlfriend fell ill while pregnant and was forced to give birth to our son 6 weeks prematurely. It was quite an awful time, and I ended up having 3 weeks off work. When I returned, I had a mountain of work to catch up on that nobody covered in my absence, followed by me trying to catch up on it and my manager pulling me away to do other projects for him when his other 2 staff members weren't doing anything. Then, when my work was late, was forever kicking off at me that I couldn't manage my time properly, etc. Then in May, he made a major mistake and pinned the blame on me for it. It caused issues between me and 2 colleagues I had to work closely with, and I was threatened with disciplinary action. Then I just got to thinking to myself, without me running his department, he's nothing. Without me, he wouldn't even have a job. Without me, he wouldn't be able to explain what was going on with his department to senior management. How I ran his department for him on half of his salary. He takes all the glory and we get all of the grief. I had one last run-in with him over this mistake he had made and handed my formal notice in to him the following day. It was funny over those 4 weeks of serving my notice, just watching him slowly take over my responsibilities and struggling with them. Those responsibilities that he often told me, "I don't even know what you do during the day." He had to then do the horrible jobs he used to pile on me, and on my final day in June, I told my fellow colleagues that I'll give him 3 months before he either quits or gets fired. Within the first few weeks, the department massively failed their monthly audit, which sparked attention of company directors who were sent in to investigate as this had never happened before. Then, bang, a month later, I was on holiday and I had one of the senior managers ringing me and texting me, asking for passwords for systems, as my line manager had gone on holiday and hadn't organized anything. I ignored him because I didn't work there anymore and I was on holiday. Then he kept continuing to make mistakes. He hadn't ordered essential items, which caused trouble for the site. They didn't have a clue about the job in question, as I originally was out to prove. Then a month after that, he was suspended from his duties pending further investigation, as management finally realized he couldn't do his job in question. A month after that, management claims he quit with immediate effect. I think he was fired. But either way, my 3-month prediction was right, and he couldn't run that shift without me. It really is petty revenge, quitting a job to prove a point, but it proved the point. Good riddance. I now run my own business. I have a much better work-life balance, earning more than I could ever dream of in that place, and life is fantastic. Imagine your sister kicks you out of her bridal party because you haven't lost enough weight and then has the nerve to ask you to pay for her wedding. That's exactly what happens in our next story. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap, come have a listen. You won't believe what happens next.